We have a lot to discuss on today's Legal AF. An Epstein witness that no one has been talking about. Was that the factor that sent Melania Trump scrambling to hold a press conference seemingly out of nowhere? Is this new potential witness regarding the Epstein files and regarding the cover-up speaking with the Democrats in the House Oversight Committee? Is this witness going to spill the beans? What does this witness know? We'll discuss on Legal AF. Also, the White House is in panic mode over being complicit in war crimes, being complicit in a cover-up of a child sex trafficking ring, being complicit in ICE and Border Patrol Gestapo killing, kidnapping, and terrorizing people in this country. And they are begging for pardons. And Donald Trump is saying, don't worry, if you're within 200 feet of the White House and you remain loyal to me, just do what I say. I will pardon you all. Donald Trump has absolute immunity, but his staff, his cabinet members, they don't. And it should be noted that they also, even if they get a pardon, can still be held liable under state law. Donald Trump does not have pardon power over state crimes. And also, we should be talking about The Hague, because what this Trump regime has been doing, whether it's been destroying and maiming people off the coast of Venezuela with the fishing boats that have been destroyed in the Pacific, their war crimes throughout the Middle East. This is a regime made up of war criminals, and they need to be brought to justice in The Hague. And that seems pretty much apparent to everyone else in the world, other than a group of people here in the United States who, still may be brainwashed. Although we're seeing a lot of MAGA now leaving and saying, you've betrayed us, Donald, see you later. I mean, from everybody from Alex Jones, Candace Owens, previously Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson, and others, Nick Fuentes, others saying that they think that Donald Trump has dementia. They think that the 25th Amendment should be invoked. They're leading the charge and saying that Donald Trump should be impeached. And so while we're on the topic, we'll also talk about the letter sent by Democratic Congress members led by Jamie Raskin from the House Judiciary Committee. He's the ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee, and he is demanding that a cognitive exam be taken of Donald Trump by Trump's personal physician, and that be made public, and that Donald Trump's physician testify publicly before Congress, because Donald Trump's behavior right now it's very clear that he's unfit for office as he rapidly deteriorates mentally and physically before our eyes. Also, a federal judge, Judge Friedman, excoriates Pete Hegseth, the Defense Department, and the entire Trump regime for a new scheme to try to block reporter access inside the Pentagon in general, and also critically during this war against Iran and all of the war crimes there. And again, as we've been reporting here on the Midas Touch Network, everything out of this Trump regime has been lie after lie after lie. And it wasn't even me who said this, although I've definitely have sharing this opinion. If you've been watching, it was the editor at large of the Wall Street Journal who said it's a pretty sad condition of our country where you trust Iranian media and their propaganda over the lies that Donald Trump says. At least what they're saying in Iran pretty much remains consistent. Donald Trump one day says this, then one day says that, then an hour he says this, then an hour he says that. But we've been very critical, focusing on, we need to see evidence and facts, like where are those F-15E pilots that reportedly were shot down over Iran, and that there was a search with hundreds of special forces to find the two F-15E pilots. And it just so happened to be really close to the Isfahan nuclear facility in Iran. And there were C-130s that were destroyed. There were helicopters that were destroyed. There were multiple MQ-9 Reapers that were destroyed. Like $1 billion of weapons were destroyed trying to find these two F-15E pilots. Who are they? Right. One was supposedly a colonel, which is, odd that that there was, but any event, I mean, I guess you could still have a colonel, in the plane. Where are these pilots? Who are their names? What's happened to them? Usually we would see like images, and this whole narrative of somebody fell like 100 miles away from where they eventually were found, right by the Isfahan nuclear facility. We've been just asking a lot of questions because I'm not trying to veer into areas and seem all, being conspiratorial. I just want the evidence. I want to follow the facts. I don't think it's conspiratorial at all to say with our fact-based approach, where are the facts? Where's the evidence about any of this stuff? And I think it's important, why we talk about it here on Legal AF, because we have a fact-based, evidence-based approach to everything we do. So we're going to talk about this and a lot more here on Legal AF. So let's just get into it right away right now. And I want to share from the outset Melania Trump at this press conference that she held, where she just out of nowhere, Melania announces she's holding a press conference in the White House, which is kind of a rare thing for a first lady to do, or whoever. Okay, she wants to address the nation, right? Melania Trump will be addressing the nation. So you're like, well, what's she going to address the nation about from the White House? Okay, it's an unusual step for a first lady to address the nation without revealing what the topic is. So then she goes up to the microphone, and you'll all recall, here is what she said. Let's play the first clip.
The first time I crossed paths with Epstein was in the year 2000 at an event Donald and I attended together. At the time, I had never met Epstein and had no knowledge of his criminal undertakings. Numerous fake images and statements about Epstein and me have been circulating on social media for years now. Be cautious about what you believe. These images and stories are completely false. I'm not a witness or a named witness in connection with any of Epstein's crimes. My name has never appeared in court documents, depositions, victim statements, or FBI interviews surrounding the Epstein matter. I have never had any knowledge of Epstein abuse of his victims.
Okay, so then lots of people were wondering, not a lot of people had been as focused as perhaps we should have been on Melania's dark past, Donald Trump's disastrous, catastrophic, and unlawful war in Iran, its crippling impact on our economy, the war crimes that had been committed, had been taking up a lot of the coverage. As you know, we in the Midas Touch Network continue to cover the Epstein files and the cover-up, and we've been talking about the depositions that had been taking behind the scenes with Epstein's accountants and lawyers, and the Pam Bondi subpoena. And Bondi's supposed to appear April 14th, but Bondi's trying to get out of that. I'll talk more about that, in a little bit as well. But, she's no longer the Attorney General, and the Department of Justice, now run by Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, says, well, Bondi's not the AG anymore, so we're not going to make her show up. The subpoena was purely in the capacity as the Attorney General, which it was not. The subpoena for her to testify before the House of Representatives was in her capacity as Pam Bondi, a human being, not as Attorney General Pam Bondi, as Pam Bondi. And now she's refusing to show up as the cover-up continues. So we had that, but we were reporting on that. But a lot of focus was taken away from the cover-up of this child sex trafficking ring. Then Melania does this, and it's like, is there a story that's about to break about Melania? What's going on behind the scenes? And then we start to see posts from one of Melania's former friends. How close they are is unclear. According to this individual, they were very close. Who knows what Melania will say? But her name is Amanda Ungaro. She's a immigrant from Brazil who arrived around the same time to the United States as Melania did. Ungaro arrived when she was 17. She was brought into the United States by a guy named Jean-Luc Brunel, who was the sex trafficker for Epstein. And he would bring young girls, underage girls, into the United States and funnel them into different modeling agencies, or Epstein's agency, which was often a shell for what was really going on. And so Ungaro eventually met a guy named Paolo Zampoli, and they had a long-term 19-year relationship. They had a kid together. That's Paolo Zampoli. He right now is the United States Special Representative for Global Partnerships. He has the title of an honorific. He's viewed as like an ambassador. He gets paid by taxpayer dollars. He travels all over the world, Zampoli, to kind of represent the United States at special events, like he was just in Hungary, where there's an election taking place, where Viktor Orban's expected to lose. But on that trip when J.D. Vance was trying to prop up Orban in Hungary, Paolo Zampoli is there. But Zampoli and Ungaro had a kid together. They had a custody battle. And then there was a New York Times story about Zampoli using his connections in the Trump regime to call up ICE to try to get Ungaro deported after she was accused of engaging in some, fraud investigation in Florida. She ended up marrying a physician in Florida. There was a custody dispute over the kid. She got picked up by ICE, and the New York Times story was that Paolo Zampoli called ICE and expedited her getting removed to Brazil, where she is now. Zampoli denies that he was influential in the decision by ICE and that he did it, but there are people who said he called. That was the issue there. So you piece all of these stories together. Well, why am I even mentioning Zampoli? What does this have to do with anything, right? I did a report on it earlier this morning on the Midas Touch YouTube channel as well. Well, Zampoli is the person, by Melania's own admission, who introduced Melania to Donald Trump. And Zampoli had, it was called ID Model Agency, was Zampoli's model agency. He had his group that was his model. All these guys had like model agencies right at the time. And Zampoli would bring in young Eastern European girls and women, young women and girls, as models into the United States. And he would say that this was a modeling agency. One of those individuals was Melania, who Zampoli brought in. And Zampoli would throw parties at a Manhattan club called the Kit Kat Club, where he would bring in wealthy Manhattan men and introduce them to the girls or the young ladies, the models, as he would call them, who would be there. And one of these nights in the late 90s, that's when Donald Trump was introduced to Melania. And then Zampoli worked with Melania after she and Donald Trump got together to expedite her visa. He was the one who purportedly helped her get the Einstein visa. Then she got citizenship when she married Trump. Then she brought her family in. But she obviously has a very close relationship with Zampoli, right? And Zampoli, during the first Trump administration, all of a sudden found all of this newfound power because he was the person who introduced them. And Zampoli's long-term girlfriend, I don't think they ever married, was this Amanda Ungaro. So obviously Amanda Ungaro would be at all these events with Paolo Zampoli, with Melania, and with Donald Trump. They were in the same circle. So they would do New Year's, like they were so close, they did New Year's cards together and anniversary cards together. I mean, it seems that they weren't just friends, but they were very, very close friends for a long, long time. And Ungaro, who was brought here by Jean-Luc Brunel, the sex trafficker for Epstein, and entered this kind of murky world, and I'm using these words, but you could use whatever words you want to call it. And she would know about Brunel. She would know about Epstein. She would know about Paolo Zampoli. Did Paolo Zampoli tell her things about, I don't know. I'm asking the questions now. Okay. This is an investigation, if you will. Would Paolo Zampoli tell her things about Melania? Would Paolo Zampoli tell her things about Donald? Does Zampoli know a lot of secrets about Epstein? And does Zampoli know a lot of secrets about Jean-Luc Brunel and this entire world? So what we're now seeing, or we're learning, is that it seems that the Democrats in the House Oversight Committee, they either reached out to Ungaro or Ungaro reached out to them after she was deported to Brazil because her life was taken away, her kid was taken away, and she potentially holds all of these secrets through Zampoli and through this world. So I think the word got out to Melania that Ungaro was speaking with Democrats on the House Oversight Committee. And again, I'm just giving you my opinion right now. I'm just trying to piece this together. So again, First Amendment opinion speech protected by the United States Constitution. I'll give you that disclaimer right here. I'll tell you when I say fact. And oftentimes, but I'm trying to, when you deal with people who lie so much and when they're not transparent, what we have to do is try to be good lawyers and assess all these data points to say, is this what probably happened? Yes or no? You ultimately make the decision, right? So Ungaro starts making social media posts like at Pambandi. Are you already aware of the situation? Do you fully understand the extent of the information I possess regarding you and the individuals associated with you? I strongly advise you to consider the seriousness of these matters. Any actions taken against me or attempts to escalate this situation could have significant legal consequences. I expect this to be handled with the appropriate level of responsibility and professionalism moving forward. And then she also says, until you fall as a little chicken, I have nothing left to lose in my life. I will tear down the entire system. Be careful with me, bitch, in response to, posts by Melania. I will tear down your corrupt system, even if it's the last thing in my life. I will go all the way. I'm not afraid. Maybe you should be afraid of what I know, of who you are and who your husband is. We'll take legal action against you and your pedophile husband. I have known you for 20 years. You knew I was detained in ICE. You were present in my life every year on my son's birthday, even sending Secret Service and being the first to congratulate him back in 2016. Something was clearly wrong, but I am not part of any evil mission involving children. So what did you do, Melania? You tried to involve me, but you failed because I have character. Do you know what I think about you after 20 years? So she's making all of these posts, right? And Melania, I think, knows Ungaro very well. Ungaro's now been deported by the Trump regime to Brazil. She's lost her son. She feels she has nothing to lose, that her life has been ripped away. Zampoli, was, according to these stories, part of, expediting. And although Zampoli knows that, Zampoli's out there living his best life. And Ungaro, has this data. So my question is, what does Ungaro know? Have the Democrats spoken to her? Was Melania trying to get ahead of what Ungaro is going to share? And can Ungaro, of all of the people, no one's been discussing Ungaro, but it would make sense, right? That she would have a lot of sensitive information, perhaps the most sensitive information. Then regarding Melania's statement, the photos of me and Epstein are fake. The photos of that don't believe the documents, we know the emails are real that were in the Epstein files. So when she goes, I'm not in the files, you're in the files. Now, just because you're in the files or anybody's in the files, we have to look critically. Well, what does it say about you in the files, right? And analyze it. And oftentimes it's very, very bad. And for Melania, it seems like you were friends with Ghislaine. You called her G, she called you Sweet Pea. You talked about meeting up. You said that Jeffrey Epstein and her looked great in the New York Magazine article, that it was a really good article about Jeffrey, and the pictures of them were great. And I mean, that's the New York Magazine article from 2002. That was a really bad article. I mean, that one had all the red flags where Trump said Epstein's a great guy. He likes women on the younger side, beautiful women on the younger side. That's his reputation. They were all the red flags in that article. Remember, that's the one where the editor kind of pulled back on what the real story was going to be because there were like legal threats and other things. But there were so many red flags in the article. So Melania's like, great article. That's an amazing one. I'm not sure that was an amazing one. I'm not sure that was the amazing article. And then Ghislaine calls her Sweet Pea. Look forward to meeting up soon. So, that's a real message right there. The photos are real. I understand that there are probably fake photos out there. There's lots of AI and other stuff, but there you can't dispute that there are real, actual photos, over there. And then when you piece all of this together too, Paolo Zampoli, right around when Melania gives that press conference, Zampoli comes out and says, I want to be deposed. I'm ready to have my deposition taken because I want to clear the air. Epstein did not introduce Donald Trump and Melania. I was the one who did it, and I want to put that under oath. So I think Melania probably went to, I'm giving you my opinion, probably went to Zampoli after Zampoli's ex-girlfriend and the mother of his child was saying those things and saying, Zampoli, you got to agree to testify right now. I think this would be a dream for the Democrats in the House Oversight Committee to cross-examine Paolo Zampoli and ask all the questions now about Melania Trump's immigration status, her background. Why is it that she said she graduated from the University of Slovenia and that wasn't true? How did her parents get here? How did she qualify for an Einstein visa, which is only given to people who are like the best in the field? And in my opinion, and I'm sure yours as well, Melania wasn't that. You could ask a lot of questions, and Zampoli and Epstein were thinking about buying elite model agency together. Zampoli considered doing deals with Epstein, and then recently, because Zampoli's name is all over the Epstein files, or in the files at least, Zampoli was like, isn't it a good thing to be in the files? Like, he basically insinuated only the important people are in the files. So I take it as a compliment that I'm in the files because it shows that I was important. So he said some words to that effect recently when his name was in those files. So I think this is an important area that not a lot of people are focusing on. We need to focus on it. Democrats in the House Oversight Committee are certainly focused on. And then the broader question is that what Melania was, is that the reason that she did this seemingly out of nowhere? And no one was expecting this. But, in many ways, okay, thank you. And now you brought a lot of our attention back to things we probably should have been covering more. And we have been, as you know, on the Midas Touch Network. But I want to talk about one other thing regarding Epstein in a moment, specifically as it relates to Pam Bondi. But I want to remind everybody, make sure you hit subscribe on our YouTube channel. Help us get to 7 million subscribers. Make sure you subscribe to the Legal AF YouTube channel, as well as the Legal AF Substack. They're doing great. Oh, Popok's doing great, everybody, just so you know. From time to time, as you know, we've been working around the clock. I wanted to take some give Popok a little family time from time to time. He's going to allow me to do that as well. That's what's good about having a great, a great co-host like Michael Popok, and we'll take turns, but he's doing great. Everything's great there. Also, if you or somebody has been injured in an auto accident, trucking accident, if you've been harmed by the negligence of others, medical malpractice, whatever, call the Popok firm, 877-POPOK-AF, or visit thepopokfirm.com. They're available 24/7. The consultation is free. You may have a friend also, or somebody in a family, who something tragic happened to them and they were injured because a company did something or a bad accident. Just reach out to Popok. Let's see if there's a case. 877-POPOK-AF, or visit thepopokfirm.com. All right, thanks everybody. We'll take our first quick break of the show. We'll be right back.
When it comes to dog food, it feels like you have to choose between fresh and healthy or easy to store and serve, but never both. Well, you don't have to choose anymore, thanks to Sundays. Sundays was founded by a veterinarian and mom, Dr. Tori Waxman, who got tired of seeing so-called premium dog food full of fillers and synthetics. So she designed Sundays, air-dried real food made in a human-grade kitchen using the same ingredients and care you'd use to cook for yourself and your family. Every bite of Sundays is clean and made from real meat, fruits, and veggies with no kibble. That means no weird ingredients you can't pronounce and no fillers. Compared to kibble or other brands out there, Sundays invests 50 times more in its ingredients to ensure premium quality, because your dog deserves food made with care, not in the interest of cost cutting. Even if you don't have a dog yourself, you still want the dogs you love to get the same quality food you'd want for your own family. Real ingredients, no fillers, and something that actually supports their health. And the best part? Just scoop and serve. No freezer, no thawing or prep, no mess. Make the switch to Sundays. Go right now to sundaysfordogs.com/legalaf50 and get 50% off your first order. Or you can use code legalaf50 at checkout. That's 50% off your first order at sundaysfordogs.com/legalaf50. That's sundaysfordogs.com/legalaf50, or use code legalaf50 at checkout. Bathroom comfort and hygiene are things most people don't think about until something isn't working the way it should. That's where Tushy comes in. Tushy brings a modern, comfortable approach to everyday bathroom hygiene with bidets designed to clean far more effectively than traditional toilet paper. Instead of endless wiping, Tushy uses fresh water to help remove up to 99% of bacteria while protecting your natural skin barrier. The Tushy bidet we received, it installed in about 10 minutes and attached easily to an existing toilet without the need for additional plumbing. The cleaning experience feels noticeably fresher and more effective compared with relying on toilet paper alone. Tushy bidets can also help reduce irritation, prevent micro tears caused by wiping, and many people who switch end up using up to 80% less toilet paper, making going to the bathroom the most comfortable thing you do all day. For a limited time, our listeners get 10% off their first bidet order when you use code LEGALAF at checkout. That's 10% off your first bidet order at hellotushy.com with promo code LEGALAF. Again, for a limited time, our listeners get 10% off their first bidet order when you use code LEGALAF at checkout. That's 10% off your first bidet order at hellotushy.com with promo code LEGALAF.
Welcome back to Legal AF, where we apply our fact and evidence-based approach to the intersection of law and politics of the day. And, here's the thing. When you're Pam Bondi and you're there with all the bluster and bravado, the Dow is 50,000. Okay. You're going to do your press conferences. You do your propaganda. You have a whole regime media network with Fox and Newsmax and now CBS in a lot of aspects, and other corporate news. Okay. That's what you got. Well, when you get subpoenaed to testify where you're under oath and you have to swear to tell the truth and you have to answer questions purely about the Epstein files, cover up of the Epstein files, what you knew, when, where, what, who, what, where, when, why, and you refuse to do it. Okay. After all of the bluster and bravado and BS, that's a big problem to me. And that's one of the big problems I have with this whole kind of MAGA ecosystem, amongst a lot of other problems, is that they're out there and they, they spread the lies so confidently, so sociopathically, yelling and the whole thing. And it's like, okay, well, now talk about it under oath. No, we're not going to do that. No way, we're not going to do that. Think about it from the perspective of even something like the Office of Management and Budget, right? Russ Vought, architect of Project 2025. He hasn't even showed up yet before the Budget Committee, the Office of Management Budget guy who has gutted all these agencies, the author of Project 2025. We're now April. Okay. And he says he's going to testify this month and soon, as soon as this week. But the fact that the head of the Office of Management and Budget doesn't go before the Budget Committee, that's a big problem. Under the Biden administration, these individuals would testify very frequently because that's what happens. You subject yourself to oversight when you take leadership roles. And I know, for example, Biden's Homeland Security Secretary, Mayorkas, not the most popular guy because he would get, demonized on state regime media, Fox, all of the time, while Republicans blocked comprehensive immigration on a bipartisan basis put forward by Senator Langford and Democrats as well. Republicans and Democrats came up with a comprehensive immigration bill, but Trump said kill the bill. But my point here is that Mayorkas would show up, and would it give Fox the fodder as they would do the clips of the Republicans, yelling at Mayorkas, and it would, they'd play it and they'd blast it as though that was the biggest controversy, imaginable. You'd have a Republican and you're responsible for the invasion. Admit you're responsible for the, and Mayorkas would be like, no, I'm not responsible. Yes, you're responsible. And then Hannity would say, look at this, look at Mayorkas. He's denying there's an invasion, right? But the guy would show up and he would testify under oath, like very frequently. And that's what happened throughout the Trump. You would have very frequent, Merrick Garland would show up a lot, right? He would testify calmly, confidently. You may not like what Merrick said. You may like what he said. You may be ambiguous. You may think he's the worst. You may think that he was all right. I'm not sure anybody who thinks he was the best, but he would show up. And I'll tell you what he didn't do. He didn't go, well, senator or congress member, you know that your district, do you know in Culver City that there is, he didn't do that. He just answered the questions like a grown-up, like an adult, okay? So now Bondi set to have her deposition taken April 14th on a bipartisan basis. She was subpoenaed. If you've been watching Legal AFs, you know that I've been saying she's never going to show up there. I've always been saying something's going to happen to her before that, because ain't no way she's showing up at that thing to talk about the Epstein file. And so now she and the Justice Department, or the Injustice Department, is claiming because she's no longer the AG, she doesn't have to have her deposition taken. Excuse me? Didn't y'all take Hillary Clinton's deposition, who's not in the files, who has zero connection? So you took Hillary Clinton's deposition in her capacity, not as a former Secretary of State or senator, as an individual who's just living her life right now, just trying to spend time with her family and live a normal life. You brought her in and sat her down for a deposition. She answered all of the questions. So she gets but Pam Bondi, one of the main perpetrators of the cover-up of this sex trafficking ring, doesn't get her deposition taken. That's crazy. That's their position. And now James Comer from the House Oversight Committee, who chairs it, he's like, no, we're not going to do it. And again, I don't care what political party you're from. We should want her to testify to get the answer. She's scared, right? Don't we want the answers? Is she scared? Yeah, she is scared to do it. But then don't take the leadership position. Don't engage in the behavior if you're then scared to do these things, or if you don't want to provide accountability. Don't do it. You don't just stay away from doing things now that affirmatively harm people's lives. And then one of the most dastardly things that Melania Trump did that I want to point out as well is, as she was basically saying that if you hear my name, if you hear anything about me out there, it's false. You don't believe it. Don't believe things. I mean, I think the subtext, and I'm giving you my opinion. Melania from Slovenia, who somehow got an Einstein visa. I think the subtext of what she was saying, and again, just my opinion, you may hear things from this Ungaro lady, but she's an immigrant in Brazil. Are we going to trust what that person's saying? Think about your source of the people who are saying things about me. Now, my opinion, Melania wanted to get ahead of whatever Ungaro's saying. That's why she did it. But I'm giving you my opinion, and that's all. You could form your own opinions on these things, as we're entitled to under the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. But here's what Melania said, where she then invokes the name of the victims and the survivors. And she acts like she's fighting for the survivors by saying they should go and testify in the House of Representatives. Let them testify. And then they responded like, We've done what we have to do. You know who should testify? Howard Lutnick, the people in the files, the co-conspirators. They're the ones who need to show up and testify publicly before the wall. We've given the information. We've cooperated. We've testified in criminal cases. We've testified in civil cases. Yes, if we want to show up, we'll show up. The same way we showed up in front of the Capitol building in order when the cover-up was, and still taking place, the cover-up, but we've stayed up in front of the Capitol building to expose the cover-up. We're happy to chat. Get the people, investigate the bad guys, investigate the co-conspirators, investigate the criminals and the crooks and the sex traffickers. Bring them in. And here is Melania trying to gain sympathy by talking about survivors and victims. Here, play this clip.
Now is the time for Congress to act. Epstein was not alone. Several prominent male executives resigned from their powerful positions after this matter became widely politicized. Of course, this doesn't amount to guilt, but we still must work openly and transparently to uncover the truth. I call on Congress to provide the women who have been victimized by Epstein with a public hearing specifically centered around the survivors. Give these victims their opportunity to testify under oath in front of Congress with the power of sworn testimony. Each and every woman should have her day to tell her story in public if she wishes, and then her testimony should be permanently entered into the congressional record. Then, and only then, we will have the truth. Thank you.
Secretary Letnick to continue serving.
It goes back to my prior point too. Okay, Melania, you want to hold a weird press conference? You want to say these things? Then sit there or stand there and answer the questions that people have. What about Lutnick? What about Trump? Don't you think that Donald Trump should have his deposition taken? What about this person? What about the cover-up? What do you think about Bondi? What do you think about that? Then you just walk away. Look, if you want to do that, here's the broader view. You know, lots of people are like, oh, Midas touch, you're anti-Trump, you're anti-Trump. I'm like, look, I'm anti a person who is causing such pain and harm and devastation in our country. That's why I'm not like anti an arbitrary human being. And I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who do bad things. I don't devote lots of time to speaking about them. Where I can, I bring accountability as far and wide as I can. But a person who has stepped into public life and has inflicted pain upon people, I'm going to call that behavior out. That's just what we're going to do here. And so it's like with all of these people out there, y'all injected yourself into positions where you should be something called public servants. What you should be doing is service to us. We, the people, should be served by you. You should be trying to help us, not use your power to hurt us. And I know sometimes in the gamification of politics, that point gets lost, but it's the most important point. Why do we have this at all if not to help the people, not to bring people in who subjugate and hurt and harm the people? Let's remember what the great American experiment was truly supposed to be all about. And so going back to Melania, when Melania goes out there, okay, then stand there and answer questions. Now, you should be deposed by Congress. Not Hillary Clinton, but Hillary Clinton's a grown-up. She showed up and answered the questions. Even though she had nothing to do with it, she showed up and she answered the damn questions. In fact, in Benghazi, remember Benghazi? It's every day of the war, every day of this catastrophic and unlawful war, Trump probably did 10 things to 20 things worse than Benghazi before 10 a.m. in the morning. Okay, remember the outrage the Republicans showed. By the way, when a Democratic president takes power in 2028, think about all the fake outrage they're going to have. Oh my God, we're deficit hawks now. And how dare you do this and how dare you do that? And it's like, excuse me, do we remember what took place over the past 4 years? Do we remember what a single day in Trump looked like? I would say by noon on any given day, Trump has done 8 to 10 things more psychotic and damaging than almost anything Biden did in the entire administration. And I dare you to try to come up with something that would truly rebut that. One day by noon, Trump achieves that. But my broader point about Melania is answer the damn questions with all these people. Just answer the questions. If you're going to do that, stop manipulating and stop being sociopaths. Just answer the damn questions. And Donald Trump, if you keep saying you have cognitive exams and you pass this cognitive exam and that cognitive exam, then make it public. I'm not telling you on your own, keep on volunteering cognitive exam after you take the exam that tests for dementia and you brag that you passed this exam like it's some IQ test. Okay, then release the exam. And I'm glad that the Democrats, in the House Judiciary Committee have sent a letter. Democratic Congressmember Jamie Raskin led this initiative saying it's a letter to Donald Trump's personal physician, Barbarella. And the letter says, do another cognitive exam because it seems Trump likes to do them so much and make the results public. Scott McFarlane from the Midas Touch Network, it makes me so proud to say that, who heads our DC bureau, Scott McFarlane posted the letter that was sent by Democratic Congressmember Jamie Raskin to Trump's personal physician, Barbarella, and says, hey, release it, do it publicly, release it, and then sit for a deposition, sit in front of the House Oversight Committee, and we'll ask you questions about Donald Trump's health. By the way, where's the Butler, Pennsylvania records when Donald Trump was allegedly hit by a bullet on his ear, where he claims an AR-15 bullet just like kissed his ear and there was no injury, and the Butler, Pennsylvania records weren't released. Instead, he had MAGA Republican Congressmember Randy Jackson post a letter saying Donald Trump is in the greatest health ever, some stupid letter like that. Release the damn medical records, not records that say, oh, well, Donald Trump is in the best shape as evidenced by the fact that he wins lots of golf tournaments and that, yeah, he's 6'3" and 220 pounds. No, he's not. Stop with the stupidness. For real, stop the stupidness, stop the lies, and just let's exist back in reality, people. And that's what you want to know. Well, why is the Midas Touch Network the #1 YouTube channel, in the country right now? Why is Legal AF crushing it? And subscribe to the Legal AF YouTube channel. Why? Because we're listening to what you're saying. We feel what you're saying, and we're saying it. This is ridiculous. Just act normal. Act like grown-ups. Act like adults. Stop committing war crimes. Stop blowing up elementary schools, you genocidal war criminals. Stop it. Stop it. Use our money to help with healthcare and education and help the people. Help people afford homes. Help people live better lives. Stop the chaos and your social media posts where you're bragging about arches and statues that you want to build. It's disgusting and it's gross. This is about the American people, damn it. And again, we'll follow up because obviously what's going to happen? Barbarella and Trump are going to be like, oh, well, we're not going to do that. Medical privacy. They're going to say Trump has medical privacy rights and we're not going to turn over the results. We're just going to have Trump's physician write that Trump's got the greatest health ever. I see his hands deteriorating. I see his ankles swollen. I see him not able to walk straight. He can't complete sentences and keep a single thought. He says the most deranged things. He's saying praise be to Allah again this morning. Every day, praise be Allah, as he talks about destroying and blowing up civilizations. By the way, that's what they point to in this letter as well. Like, what's this behavior? We're seeing it happening. This isn't like some, we should debate it. This is not normal behavior. I think that's objectively. This is not normal behavior. We got to call it out. So we'll keep you posted on what's going on there in the House Oversight Committee. We'll keep you posted that regarding Bondi. We'll keep you posted on the House Judiciary Committee regarding this demand that Donald Trump take a cognitive exam and that his health records be made public. We'll keep you posted there as well. While we were on the topic of Melania, just so the abject corruption taking place, you know how Kristi Noem used our taxpayer dollars to buy herself a $70 million jet, or to use a $70 million jet for her and Corey Lewandowski to travel the world together or travel the country together, while Kristi Noem's husband was doing whatever he was doing. And I don't want to go into it. There's videos, all these things that are happening. And here's the thing, as long as it's, consensual and safe, and what kind of private life you're into, I'm not going to shame you for it as long as it's safe and consensual. But stop trying to screw over other people. Stop sitting in judgment of others. Stop using the government to attack marginalized communities while in your private life, you're hiding things about yourself, that you try to mock other people for. So stop the double standards right there. But anyway, as it relates to the $70 million jet for Kristi Noem, now that's going to Melania, apparently. The luxury plane, complete with a queen-size bed and cocktail bar, that was being leased by Kristi Noem, will now be available for the First Lady and cabinet officials for long-distance travel. So again, they're just taking our taxpayer dollars and now flying around in these massive Gulfstream jets and Bombardiers. This is not what America should be about. Remember, they mocked former President Biden for taking the train. You have Governor Newsom, flies in the airplane with the rest of the people, with the rest of us in the airplane. Like that's while this Trump regime destroys our economy, screws over people, and engages in this behavior. And we got to call it out. I want to talk more now about another legal case and an important order by Judge Friedman, a federal judge in Washington, D.C., who made a ruling regarding Hegseth trying to cover up information regarding the war. A few other things I want to talk about as well. Let's just take our last quick break of the show. A reminder, if you or someone you know has been injured in an auto accident, trucking accident, if you've been injured by the negligence by a company, by somebody representing a company, medical malpractice cases, if you know someone who maybe tragically died because of the negligence of others, give the Popok firm a call, 877-POPOK-AF. You can call or text, or you can visit thepopokfirm.com. Don't be shy. You can recommend your friends. Reach out to Popok. You know Popok's a great lawyer, and he set up this firm to help people who listen to the show because he was getting a lot of calls. So reach out there. Also, subscribe to Legal AF on YouTube and Substack. Help it get millions of subscribers. Help it continue to grow. We'll be right back after our last quick break of the show.
We love our cat Chanel, but for the longest time we were dealing with, well, the classic scarf and barf situation. She'd eat too fast, throw up, and I just thought, well, that's normal. Turns out, well, it's not. Then I switched Chanel to Smalls, and the difference was immediate. Smalls fresh cat food is protein-packed recipes made with preservative-free, 100% human-grade ingredients you'd find in your fridge, and it's delivered right to your door. Since switching, I've noticed better digestion, more energy, and her coat is softer and shinier. Even the litter box is, well, less gross because more of the nutrients are actually digestible, so less junk comes out the other end. Cats use protein as their main energy source. So more protein means more sustained energy, and you can really see it. And there's real proof. Forbes ranks Smalls the best overall cat food. BuzzFeed, it said, my cats went completely ballistic for this stuff. And after switching, 88% of cat owners reported overall health improvements. So stop serving your little carnivore a bowl of processed shortcuts for a limited time because you're a Legal AF listener. Get 60% off your first order, plus free shipping and free treats for life when you head to smalls.com/legalaf. That's 60% off your first order, plus free shipping and free treats for life when you head to smalls.com/legalaf. Magic Spoon is basically the grown-up version of your favorite childhood cereal. Same fun, nostalgic taste, just made for real life now. Their cereal is high protein, 0 sugar, and each serving packs 12 to 14 grams of protein, 0 to 2 grams of sugar, and 4 to 5 grams of net carbs, so it's great for anyone who's carb conscious. Plus, the original cereal line is certified gluten-free, which makes it a super simple fueling option for breakfast, a late night snack, or post-workout. They've got classic flavors like fruity, frosted, peanut butter, cocoa, cinnamon crunch, and more. And they also launched a different line with classic marshmallow and s'mores, both made with real marshmallows and 2 grams of sugar. Those really lean into the childhood nostalgia. Just note, those are not certified gluten-free since the marshmallows are made in a factory exposed to gluten. They also have Magic Spoon treats, which are crispy, airy snack bars with 12 grams of protein, 7 grams of fiber, 0 grams of added sugar, and 2 to 3 grams of net carbs. Look for Magic Spoon on Amazon or at your nearest grocery store. And if you want to try something new, check out Magic Spoon's protein pastries. They're packed with protein and taste like the nostalgic toaster pastries you grew up with, but without all the sugar. You can get $5 off your next order, including the protein pastries, at magicspoon.com/legalaf. That's magicspoon.com/legalaf for $5 off.
Welcome back to Legal AF. Thank you to all our pro-democracy sponsors for making this show possible. Shout out to all of them. I want to talk right now about the continued efforts by the Trump regime to conceal and hide what's going on in this catastrophic and unlawful war in Iran and in foreign policy in general by the Trump regime. One of the first steps that authoritarians take, as you know, was destroy the free press, make them bend, make them break, make them kiss the ring. And we've seen all variations of that, you know, the kind of takeover of CBS, Now we see consolidation with Warner Brothers and CNN and what's going to happen there. Obviously, you have state regime media and Fox. You had so many media companies bend the knee. I think with all of that happening, that's one of the reasons I think we've seen the growth of the Midas Touch Network, independent media that we've been leading here as well, trying to get out the facts, the truth, nothing but the truth, just throughout the day, consistency, and encouraging others to do the same, building an independent media, not just network, but a framework where others joined as well. And we uplifted others, I think was critical during this period of time. But I think also, we should reflect on the levers of authoritarian regimes and what they do to try to kill the free press. And one of the things that Hegseth implemented right away was basically in the Pentagon, if you were a defense reporter and you wanted to report on things happening from the Pentagon and you wanted credentials inside the Pentagon, any story that you wrote about the Pentagon or about Hegseth, you had to submit basically for the review of a division within the Pentagon that would review your articles to say if it could be published or not published, and they would make edits to it. And you would have to basically agree to a code of conduct as a reporter. And part of that code of conduct was review by Defense Department officials in exchange for being able to show up at the Pentagon and be able to ask questions. Now, if you didn't sign the document, your press credentials would be taken away, but it was framed to members of the press as you have a choice. Like, look, we're saying you can still report, but you just got to agree to our code of conduct. And it just so happens that part of that code of conduct is we review your articles. And then defense reporters were like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. And then, okay, well, we're not going to renew your credentials and you can't be defense reporters inside the Pentagon. You can still report outside of the Pentagon. We just won't let you inside the building. It's a public building. It's owned by the government. They have the right to be there, right? It's a public space. It's freedom of the press, the right to ask questions of public officials. Now, we recognize there are some areas that are classified or sensitive information, and that type of information may not get to just be disseminated to the press. And there's protocols, I guess, within the Pentagon. The press still can publish what they're going to publish, but in terms of like they can't access the classified areas in the Pentagon, we all get that. But there's other areas, the press room, for example, they were being banned from the freaking press room. So mostly all of the press refused to sign this code of conduct, including Fox refused to sign. Fox, usually the defense reporters are veteran reporters who aren't really partisan and political people. Like even Fox has a good defense reporter, and most networks have good defense reporters. I mean, just they've been by good. I mean, they've been there for a long time. They're serious people. They all didn't sign this pledge or this code of conduct. They left. They sued. Hegseth brings in all this right-wing, weird extremist media, these right-wing influencers, the Laura Loomers of the world, and all these, strange people are now sitting where the New York Times and the Washington Post and others once sat, and they would ask all of these, her horrible questions to Pete Hegseth, and that's what became of the Pentagon. In the meantime, the reporters who did not sign the code of conduct, they sued the Pentagon. They sued the Trump regime in federal court, saying this was a violation of their First Amendment rights. Now, a few weeks back, the federal judge in Washington, D.C., Judge Friedman, ruled in their favor and said this code of conduct is unacceptable. Restore the credentials of these reporters. And then Pete Hegseth, in response, rather than comply with the order of the court, just came up with a new code of conduct, basically. And part of the new plan that Hegseth implemented was we're going to have escorts, like people who chaperone you around the Pentagon. Like we will put someone to escort you around the Pentagon and kind of shadow you as a reporter And then there'll be other restrictions. We won't go with our original code of conduct, which said you have to submit to us for our peer review, but we're implementing a new version of the code with the chaperone or escort, with the whoever, and they'll walk with you around. And the reporter's like, we're not having like a freaking chaperone. We're like grown adult reporters. Like, what are you doing right here? Even if you weren't a grown adult reporter, even if you were whatever, doing your high school newspaper, you don't have that, or your middle school newspaper. So the reporter's like, no. So the reporters filed what's called a motion to enforce compliance with the prior order. And rather than initiate a whole new lawsuit, because think about it, what are we now? We're recording this on April 11th of 2026. It takes a long time for a case to work its way up, right, before the judge makes its ruling. And so Hegseth's plan was, okay, we'll just do this again, and then we'll delay for many, many, many months, maybe even a year, while my plan is being implemented to block the press, while the war is raging, while we're giving lies about the operations that are taking place in Iran and in the Middle East. I mean, by the way, did you see that story recently? You probably didn't. The way I read it, if you watch the Midas Touch, you've seen it. But the United States Embassy in Iraq condemned the terrorist attacks on the embassy that took place against American diplomats. And I'm like, I didn't hear that anywhere. When were the terrorist attacks? Or we're not getting news. Like, this is what Hegseth and the Trump regime want. They want to give their version of events about this is what happened with the F-15E fighter pilots. And we put hundreds of special forces, and they did this. And we blew up our own C-130s, and we blew up our own Chinooks, and we blew up our own helicopters and MQ-9 Reapers. It's like, why would we blow up all of this equipment? Why would we send hundreds of special forces to rescue two people? Wouldn't that bring more attention to the two people? Why wouldn't we just try to do some more covert mission with a group of people? Why would we land C-130s? Wouldn't that bring more attention to what's taking these massive C-130s to rescue two people? We should definitely rescue them. That's for sure. No one left behind. That's for sure. But I don't know, all of those forces? Was something else taking place? It was right by the Isfahan nuclear facility, where you also set up an entire airstrip. Was this part of a plan to get the enriched uranium? I mean, by the way, think about even today, and was it a failed mission? Think about even today, the Pentagon put out the information and CENTCOM put out information that that the United States sent destroyers that did a lap through the Strait of Hormuz. And then Iranians like, no, you didn't. You tried to send a destroyer through the Strait of Hormuz, and we said, turn around. And then it turned around. And then Trump's like, no, it traversed the whole Strait of Hormuz. It's like a destroyer goes about 35 to 40 miles per hour. If it really did a lap around the Strait of Hormuz, I think we would know it. I think Oman would know it. I think, there would be data, and at the same time, mind you, this, right? Planet Labs, which provides all of the commercial satellite imagery, the Trump regime basically stopped them from taking satellite imagery for commercial purposes while this war is taking place. So you have all these cover-ups taking place. So it's important that we have a free press, that we understand what the hell is happening. That used to be one of the things that, was a staple of the United States. So anyway, going back to what's going on with the Pentagon, Hegseth implements his new plan, his new code of conduct, rather than file a whole new lawsuit, because that could take months, if not over a year. The reporters do a motion to enforce compliance with the prior order and said, Judge, your prior order covers this conduct. And Judge Friedman in D.C. says, I agree, it does. We don't need to file a new lawsuit. It absolutely covers it. And here's what Judge Friedman says. The court cannot conclude this opinion without noting once again what this case is really about: the attempt by the Secretary of Defense to dictate the information received by the American people, to control the message so that the public hears and sees only what the Secretary and the Trump administration want them to hear and see. The Constitution demands better. The American public demands better too. Over the past few weeks, the court has received dozens of letters and postcards from people across the country explaining what the First Amendment means to them. To quote one such letter, a free press is essential to the success of our democratic republic. The people are the government, and they cannot make good, well-informed choices without all of the facts. A free press is an excellent place to start. The protection of the freedoms enshrined in the First Amendment is a fundamental principle of the American government. The First Amendment means that the government has no power to thwart the process of free discussion, to abridge the freedom necessary to make the process work. Less than 3 weeks ago, this court rejected defendants' efforts to abridge those freedoms. With the issuance of the interim policy, the department has invoked slightly different language to achieve the same unconstitutional result. The curtailment of the First Amendment rights is dangerous at any time, and even more so in a time of war. Suppression of political speech is the mark of an autocracy, not a democracy, as the framers recognized when they drafted the First Amendment. For the foregoing reasons, the court will grant the plaintiff's motion to compel. An order consistent with this opinion will issue the same day. So ordered. And I always find these opinions that judges are issuing under the Trump regime so telling when they start with giving an explanation of what the most basic constitutional rights are and what the founders were saying and what our country is supposed to stand for. Like in this ruling, Judge Friedman starts off by saying the following: the First Amendment empowers the press to publish what it will and the public to read what it chooses, free of official prescription. In the words of Justice Black, in the First Amendment, the Founding Fathers gave the free press the protection it must have to fulfill its essential role in our democracy. The press was to serve the governed, not the governors. The government's power to censor the press was abolished so that the press would remain forever free to censure the government. The press was protected so that it could bear the secrets of the government and inform the people. Only a free and unrestrained press can effectively expose deception in the government. And paramount among the responsibilities of a free press is the duty to prevent any part of the government from deceiving the people. Yeah, powerful language like that. You know, as a law professor, I teach undergrad and I teach law students. My law class is not a partisan or political exercise at all. And I think law school and the law, when it's handed out, should be done with no fear or favor. It should be done in an even-handed way. And I also think journalism and reporting should be the same. I think that you don't show favorites. You report the facts, you report the truth. And as a human being, yes, you have opinion, but you don't lead with your opinion. You lead with the facts and the receipts. And if it makes you angry that a regime that purports to be representing the United States is engaged in war crimes, you are right to call it out and not just give the other side and go, well, they say it's not a war crime. Yeah, when you bomb an elementary school, that's what it is, okay? When you wipe out and massacre, in Lebanon and Gaza, you call it out. You say what it is. You don't hesitate, okay? And that's what's important, in this moment right now. And you bring the facts. You show the photos. You show what's happening. You show the videos. You play the clips. You show the receipts. I know sometimes people are like, oh, okay, Ben, play the clip, play the clip, play the clip. I get it. But play the clip to me means let's show the evidence to the American people because they are smart, that when they are informed, they can make opinions and they can see things. And they don't need to hear me on a split screen ranting and debating someone who wants to be loud and whatever. There's a place for that, and I get it. And I think that there's a great art form to it, and there are people who do it very, very, very well. But what I view my responsibility here on the Midas Touch YouTube channel, on the Legal AF podcast and the show, is to get into the footnotes, to get into the rulings, to read you what the judges are saying, to show you the photos and the videos, to play the clips so you can be informed. You can decide, how do I feel about this issue truthfully in a safe space, not in a judging space, not in a wag the thing. So you can say, this is how I feel. And I get it because I understand the logical framework. And I don't want to be gaslit, and I don't want the lies. And ultimately, if you reach a conclusion that's different than my conclusion or my opinion, good. But we can have this conversation respectfully. We can argue. We can have it, but it's got to be rooted in the facts. It can't be rooted in this alternate, fake, fiction, bent reality that Trump wants people to live in when it's not what's really happening. And that's what we're going to keep on doing here on the Midas Touch Network and Legal AF. So do me a favor. If you or anybody you know has been injured in a car accident, trucking accident, anything at all, Popok's there to help. Call or text 877-POPOK-AF or visit the Popok firm. The consultations are free. Don't hesitate. Don't be shy, for real. 877-POPOK-AF, thepopokfirm.com. Also, subscribe to the Legal AF Substack, the Legal AF YouTube channel. Let's grow those channels. Great to see the growth of those channels. It's really amazing to see the great work that Popok does in those channels and the whole team of people on those channels as well. Thanks everybody for watching Legal AF. We appreciate you. We're grateful for you. We'll see you next time. Shout out to the Midas Mighty and to the Legal AFers.